Good morning, I'm Taylor Wilson, and today is Saturday, May 18th, 2024. This is The Excerpt. Today, a sentencing for the man who attacked Pelosi. Plus, the Dow Jones hits a major milestone, and we look at the role celebrities will or won't have in this year's election. The man who broke into former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's home and assaulted her husband Paul Pelosi with a hammer has been sentenced to 30 years in prison. David DePape forcibly entered Pelosi's home in San Francisco in October of 2022 in a politically motivated attack. At the time, Nancy Pelosi was in Washington. DePape, according to prosecutors, was driven by the far-right conspiracy theories known as QAnon, and he acknowledged in trial testimony that he aimed to take then-Speaker Pelosi hostage. Paul Pelosi suffered skull fractures and other injuries that have continued to affect him, as he said in a letter to the judge ahead of yesterday's sentencing. The Dow Jones Industrial Average hit a new milestone yesterday, closing above 40,000 for the first time. The move highlights the stock market's resilience despite volatile inflation and uncertainty around Federal Reserve rate cuts. The Dow's latest spike was prompted by Wednesday's inflation report, which showed inflation cooling for the first time in months. Investors have taken that report as a sign the Fed could move forward with interest rate cuts as soon as September. Celebrities likely won't influence this year's election. That's according to an exclusive USA Today Suffolk University poll earlier this month. I spoke with USA Today national correspondent Terry Collins to learn more. Thanks for making the time.
No problem, Taylor. Thanks for having me.
So, Terry, let's just start here. Which high-profile influencers have tried getting involved politically in recent months? Who stands out to you?
Outside of maybe celebrities, entertainers such as Taylor Swift, who had a Get Out the Vote campaign last fall, right now I think we're seeing a lot of celebrities, influencers participating with short messages and then also some hosting fundraisers, is what we're going to see pretty soon with the actors Julia Roberts and George Clooney having a fundraiser in LA for the Biden party.
Yeah, so what does polling tell us about what effect these folks actually are having on the electorate right now?
As of right now, it doesn't look like they will have much influence. And I think that's in large part because we know who the top presidential candidates are, with it being the incumbent President Joe Biden for the Democrats and former President Donald Trump for the Republicans. So this is essentially, a 2020 rematch. And as potential debate dates on tap, voters already have an idea of both candidates. And as our poll suggests, celebrities and influencers, whether it's political or otherwise, will unlikely have an effect on who voters choose for president.
Yeah, so what are some of the actual numbers that we found from this poll?
For example, 89% of voters polled said Swift's endorsement would not matter or make them less likely to support their candidate. And then roughly the same percentage of voters said Beyonce wouldn't shape their vote. And an overwhelming majority of voters said Kim Kardashian's influence wouldn't register with them at all. So I think that's pretty telling.
Terry, are there any influential figures that do appear to be moving the needle for voters at this point?
Well, according to our poll, it appears that former President Barack Obama and First Lady Michelle Obama still have some influence nearly a decade after they left the White House. About 18% of President Obama's opinion mattered to them, a lot of those polls said, and 14% said the same of Michelle Obama. And we know both support President Biden's reelection. Still, 61% of those polled said the Obama's opinions had no effect on them at all.
What do experts say about these poll findings?
Interestingly enough, David Paleologos, director of the Suffolk University Political Research Center, who oversees our poll, said that no celebrity or influencer has great clout so far this year. And then I spoke with global political scientist Luis Perron, who said with the U.S. so highly partisan compared to a decade ago, only 6% of American voters may be swayed by celebrity endorsements based on his independent research. He thinks those voters who might be include first-timers or those who feel a conscious duty to vote but are uncertain about who to pick. So Perron thinks that celebrities are really good at one thing for candidates, and that's helping them raise money.
All right, Terry Collins is a national correspondent with USA Today. Thank you, Terry.
Hey, Taylor, thank you.
The Israel Defense Forces said yesterday that the bodies of 3 Israeli hostages kidnapped and killed by Hamas militants were recovered in Gaza. They were among those attacked by Hamas while attending a music festival in October of last year. Israeli officials said Hamas militants took the 3 bodies to Gaza after killing them at the festival. The bodies were recovered yesterday during a joint operation by the IDF and Shin Bet, Israel's intelligence arm, based on information gathered from Hamas militants arrested in Gaza, according to the IDF. Meanwhile, an escalating Israeli assault in southern Gaza has forced hundreds of thousands of people to flee from what was one of the few remaining places of refuge in the territory. And stateside, pro-Palestinian protests that spread across college campuses in late April and earlier this month have begun to taper off in recent weeks. As summer break approached, leaders at some schools struck deals with student protesters, while others called on law enforcement to forcibly remove activists from campus. Experts say it's expected that protests will fade on campus over the summer with fewer students around, but they could return again in the fall as the concessions made by some colleges come into sharper view. You can read more with a link in today's show notes. If your company's offering you a Roth 401k match, watch your taxes. I spoke with USA Today money, markets, and personal finance reporter Medora Lee to find out more. Medora, thanks for hopping on.
Thanks for having me.
So, Medora, what was Secure Act 2.0, and what does it mean for folks' Roth 401ks?
So Secure Act 2.0 was passed in late December 2022, and it brought in a whole bunch of new rules that should help people save more money for retirement. And one of the provisions was that they were finally going to allow employers to match people's Roth 401ks directly into a Roth account. Previously, they were only able to do it in a traditional 401k account. And so this is a good thing because now you can have more money in your Roth that can grow, and then you don't have to pay taxes on it when you retire because it's usually funded with after-tax money. But here's the wrinkle. If your employer offers you a Roth 401k match and they allow you to choose to have the contribution put into a Roth account, the money that the employer is putting in is actually still pre-tax money, which means that you have to pay taxes on that money.
So you talk about the contributions. What are the contribution limits for 2024 for a Roth 401k?
So they raised the limits. They adjusted it for inflation. So the maximum amount you can contribute to a Roth 401k is $23,000 if you're younger than 50 years old. If you're 50 and older, they have a so-called catch-up contribution, so you can add an extra $7,500 a year. And your employer match contributions don't count towards those personal limits.
And how common is all this, Medora? How many companies actually offer Roth 401k matches?
Right now, not too many, because a lot of them allow you to take the money that they contribute into a traditional 401k and let you roll it over into a Roth if you want. So that's how they had been handling that before. The drawback of that is that you have to not just pay the taxes on the money, but you have to account for the losses and gains if there were any on that money. And so not too many do it because that was what was the norm before. And it's also optional to even offer a match. So with this new wrinkle, I think a lot of companies have kind of been reluctant to do it because it requires a lot of paperwork and extra administrative costs that companies haven't decided if they're worth it or not. So I think that there were some surveys that said more than 90% of retirement plans offer Roth 401k option, but only about 15% are now allowing this new type of secured 2.0 contribution.
So, Medora, what advice do tax experts give to folks here in this kind of post-Secure Act 2.0 era?
So if you have this option and you choose it from your employer, you should make sure that you check your taxes and your income because you'll have to pay the tax. And there are a few different options you can do that. You can report the contributions on your tax return as part of your income. And then when you file your taxes and pay then, or you can increase your federal withholdings from your W-2 by filing a new W-4 with your employer if you don't want to face a potentially big tax bill at the end of the year. Or you can make estimated tax payments every quarter to cover the additional taxes. If you live in a state with income taxes, you might have to also do the same there.
All right, Medora Lee covers money markets and personal finance for USA Today. Thank you, Medora.
Thank you for having me.
And a troubling development in the medical community. Aggressive cancers are killing more people under the age of 50 more often. Why? Be sure to tune into the excerpt tomorrow as my co-host Dana Taylor is joined by Dr. Kimmy Eng, the founding director of the Young Onset Colorectal Cancer Center at the Dana-Farber Cancer Institute. You can find the episode right here beginning at 5 a.m. Eastern Time. And thanks for listening to The Excerpt. You can get the podcast wherever you get your pods, and if you're on a smart speaker, just ask for The Excerpt. I'm back Monday with more of The Excerpt from USA Today.